broadcasting. Well, my semi-broadcasting. Welcome to the Loretta Nash Show, Laura's blog. It depends on which platform you're listening to me on. Um, I do have um, platforms that I'm on. Uh, the Loretta Nash Show is on uh, Spreaker, yeah, and Laura's blog is on Spotify, and that's Lore Lorgh, because this other Laura was already taken, and it was part of my name anyway. So, um, and what I'm doing right now is we are in. Um, I'm reading from a book that's from 1963. It's called second. It's called Bible Readings for the Home, and it's a gift edition that was gifted to the lady that or the people that I got at this estate sale, and I am in part 10 of this book. I started on the previous episode of was 22 or 23. So I'm going to go ahead and rewind and restart. I myself, the reason why I sound so funny is I do have a southern accent, and it does come out and everything, and I do sound very southern, or Appalachia is just because that's what I was raised around. Um, Even though I live in Arkansas, it's just my vernacular. Okay, so the Bible readings from the home, we're in part 10, and it's called Christian Liberty. And there's 5 parts in this, 5 headlines in this part 10 of Christian Liberty. It has the author of Liberty, quote, the powers that be, end quote, union of the church and state, the Sabbath legislation, and uh, persecute, who persecute and why. That's the headlines on in this part 10 of this book. I think I forgot how many more parts we have until I get finished reading the book, but we're close to the end. That's one thing I know. We're close to the end. You can use this podcast for your own reference. Like I said, I'm just reading out of this book from 1963. It will say a lot about the papacy. It's downgrading the papacy. It doesn't matter to me. I mean, I was raised assembly, which was part of, well, this is what my New Testament teacher professor said, that basically the Protestants and the Catholics are under the same. So we are the Baptists and the Assembly, and all Protestants are basically pretty much Catholic. And the book in the previous episodes, that's what it said too. Well, it adjusts. But you got to think, my professor that I had, my New Testament professor at college, that's what he was told. And he was already an older man when I went to college. Okay. Let me go ahead and get to the book. It says author of Liberty. That's the first one. Big, blue, bold headlines. And like I said, I'm going to reread. Subheadline says out of Egyptian bondage. And uh, it always has a question and then it has an answer. So, and the answer is not necessarily, but most of the time in this book is a Bible verse. And if you always double check me, and I am very poor at sight reading, very, very poor. I mean, I didn't do very well in elementary school sight read. Um, it's just that my eyes are not very well, and even though I'm an artist, which is funny, and it's just that sometimes words rearrange and go in the wrong place. But if you have access to a Bible, you can always uh, double check me. I know some of y'all are afraid to purchase a Bible or go into or even don a place that has sells Bibles and stuff, and you don't want to be counted as religious because you pick one up. It is it's a book. It's a book. That's why it's called Bible. Bible means basically book, and it's a collection of books. And of course, it's divided in the New Testament, which is from Christ all the way up, and then Old Testament, which is the beginning of the creation, to up to the Malachi. And Malachi is the last in the canon Bible. But some people have the Apocrypha Bible, and it just has the extra Apocrypha stories like the Maccabees and I forgot all of them. But I used to, but see, me being Protestant, I had to memorize the 66, not the 73. But I tried to, Bible college, they told us about the extra ones. Okay, let me get back. Sorry, going off, which I don't know if it's just the way my brain works. Okay, author, um, big blue letters, the author of Liberty. Subtitle, Out of Egyptian Bondage. Question, how is the bondage of Israel in Egypt described? Quote, and the children of Israel sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, came up unto God by reason of the bondage. Exodus 2:23 compared to James 5:1-4. Who heard their groaning? Quote, God heard their groanings, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. Exodus 2:24. Question, what did God say to Moses? Quote, now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherein the Egyptian oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. Exodus 3:9-10. Question, in giving Israel his law, how did God describe himself? Quote, I am the Lord thy God, which has brought thee out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. Exodus 20:2. Got a new subheadline, and it says protection against permanent bondage. Question, How did God protect Israel from slavery? Quote, and thy brother, a Hebrew man or a Hebrew woman, be sold unto thee and serve thee 6 years. Then in the 7th year thou shalt let him go free from thee. And when thou sendest him out from thee, thou shalt not let him go away empty. Thou shalt furnish him with liberty out of thy flock, and out of thy floor, and out of thy winepress, of that wherewith the Lord thy God hath blessed thee, thou shalt give unto him. And thou shalt remember that thou wast a bondsman in the land of Egypt, and the Lord thy God redeemed thee. Therefore I command thee this thing today. Deuteronomy 15:12 through 15. Quote, thou shalt neither vex a stranger nor oppress him, for ye were strangers in the land of Egypt. Exodus 22:21. See also Corinthians, 2 Corinthians 1:3 and 4. Okay. Question. What was the one reason why Israel should keep the Sabbath? Quote, and remember that thou wast a servant in the land of Egypt, that the Lord thy God brought thee out of thence through a mighty hand and by a outstretched arm. Therefore the Lord thy God commandeth thee to keep the Sabbath day. Deuteronomy 5:15. Question. Excuse me. My breakfast kind of not going to work with me. Okay. Question. What was to be proclaimed in Israel every 50th year? Quote, and ye shall hallow the 50th year, and proclaim liberty throughout all the land unto all the inhabitants thereof. It shall be a jubilee unto you, and ye shall return every man unto his possession, and ye shall return every man unto his family. Leviticus 25, verse 10. Note, the year of Jubilee was a unique institution found in no other religion. It was a sort of exalt sabbatical year, which was to be kept every 50th year, being announced at the sound of the trumpet on the Day of Atonement. During this year, all slaves who were Hebrews were to be liberated, and all lands restored to the former owners. And they just had Jubilee, what, about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah, just about 2 or 3 years ago. Okay. Question. But Israel failed to do this, became oppressive, and disregarding and misusing the Sabbath. What did God do? Quote, therefore thus saith the Lord, ye have not hearkened unto me in proclaiming liberty every one to his brother, and every man to his neighbor. Behold, I proclaim a liberty for you, saith the Lord, to the sword and to pestilence and to famine, and I will make you to be removed unto all kingdoms of the earth. Jeremiah 34:17. See also Jeremiah 17:24 through 27, 2 Chronicles 36:19 through 21. That's interesting. Okay. Question. What fault did God find with Israel's fast? Quote, Behold, in the days of your fast ye find pleasure and exact all your labors. Behold, ye fast for strife and debate, and to smite with the fist of wickedness. Isaiah 58:3 and 4. Question. What did God send forth as an acceptable fast to him? Quote, Is not this the fast that I have chosen? To loose the bonds of wickedness, to undo the heavy burdens, and to let the oppressed go free, and that ye break every yoke. Is it not a deal thy bread to the hungry, and that thou bring the poor that are cast out cast to thy house? Excuse me. When thou seest the naked, that thou coverest him, and that thou hidest not thyself from thine own flesh. Verse 6 and 7. So that's Isaiah 58, verse 6 and 7. Then it has a note. All this shows that God loves liberty and hates bondage. And then we have a new subheadline. Like I said, my breakfast is not doing me good. Okay. Subheadline. Christ's mission for deliverance. Question. What was Christ's mission to this world? What was Christ's mission to this world? Quote, The Spirit of the Lord is upon me, because he hath anointed me to preach the gospel to the poor. He has sent me to heal the brokenhearted, to preach deliverance to the captive, and recovering of sight to the blind, to set at liberty them that are bruised. Luke 4:18. Note, the Gospels show that a large part of Christ's time, even on the Sabbath, was devoted to relieving the oppressed and distressed. Okay. Question. In what condition are those who commit sin? Quote, Whosoever commits sin is the servant of sin. End quote. St. John 8:34. Note, servant may here be rendered slave. So whomever committed sin is a slave of sin. Let's rearrange the word. Okay, question. Let's get back to the question. Why was Christ's name to be called Jesus? Quote, And thou shalt call his name Jesus, for he shall save his people from their sins. Matthew 1:21. Question. What lies at the root of all sin? Quote, when lust hath conceived, it brings forth sin. End quote. James 1:15. Quote, I have not known lust except the law had said, thou hast not convert. I have not known lust except the law had said, thou shalt not covet. Romans 7:7. Note, lust, convertedness, and unlawful desire are only different names for selfishness. Selfishness lies at the root of all sin, and selfishness is simply the love of self to the discarding of the equal rights of others. Now, question. By what scripture is the equality of rights clearly shown? Not equity, it says equality. Quote, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. Leviticus 19:18. Question. What rule has Christ laid down in harmony with this? Quote, whatsoever ye would that man would do to you, do ye even so to them. Matthew 7:12. Note, selfishness then must be uprooted from men's heart before they will recognize the equal rights of their fellow men. Question. Who alone can cleanse men's heart from selfishness? Quote, neither is there salvation in any other, for there is none other name under the heaven given among men whereby we must be saved. Acts 4:12. See also 1 John 1:9. Okay. Who alone then can give man real freedom? Quote, if the Son therefore shall make you free, ye shall be free indeed. St. John 8:36. Now we got another subheadline. It says tolerance and true worship. And the first question is, what was Christ's attitude towards unbelievers? Quote, if any man hear my words and believe not, I judge him not, for I come not to judge the world, but to save the world. St. John 12:48. St. John 12:47. Sorry, my eyes are starting to get weird and I'm getting a little tired. Okay, but that's just me. Okay, the next question says, what spirit did Christ say should control his disciples? What spirit did Christ say would control his disciples? Quote, but Jesus, said unto them, Ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. But so shall it not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister, and whosoever of you will be the chiefest shall be a servant of all. For even the Son of Man came not to be ministered unto, but to minister, and to give his life a ransom for many. Mark 10:42 through 45. I know a thought just walked through my head. You don't know some of my thoughts, but some of my thoughts walked through my head, and I guess this okay, the thought is greater than person, greater than, because I've been pretty much personally been beat over the head that since somebody's the youngest and everything, and he's supposed to be greater than everybody else, and me being the oldest, I'm supposed to, and an old woman, I'm supposed to submit unto him, and this is what my life has been full and everything, and I forgive him for saying it because he don't know. He just has one point of view. And but this says right here, it says the one who it does say right uh says ye know that they which are accounted to rule over the Gentiles exercise lordship over them, and their great ones exercise authority upon them. So basically, um I'm not sure what I'm trying to say, but I do like this verse, which is a verse that I've always been hit upon. The greater will be better than the lesser will be greater than the older. And this verse, I guess I should use, or this part of the verse. But so shall it not be among you. But whosoever will be great among you shall be your minister, and uh, whomsoever whosoever of you be the chief shall be servant of all. Huh. Okay, never mind. Sorry about that. It's just it just a thought walked in my head. Let me get back to the book. Sorry, that kind of will bring you down. Sorry, I didn't mean to bring you down. It's just something walked through my head. A vice that walked through my head, and I needed to clarify it to myself. Okay. Anyway, let's get back to the book. Question: what is present when the Spirit of the Lord is? What is present where the Spirit of the Lord is? Quote: now the Lord is that Spirit, and where that Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. 2 Corinthians 3:17. Question: what kind of worship only is acceptable to God? Quote: but the hour cometh, and now is, when the true worshippers shall worship the Father in spirit and in truth, for the Father seeks such to worship him. God is a spirit, and they that worship him must worship him in spirit and truth. St. John 4:23-24. And then the book has a line, and then it's got a poem, but it doesn't say by who. And here's the quote, or the poem. Quote, freedom and reason may make brave men. Take these away, what are they then? Mere groveling brutes, and just as well the beast may think of heaven or hell. Know then that every soul is free to choose his life and what he'll be. For this eternal truth is given, that God will force no man to heaven. He'll call, persuade, direct him right, bless him with wisdom, love, and light, in nameless way to be good and kind, but never force the human mind. End quote. Okay, now we go to the next headline in this part 10. Quote, the powers that be. End quote. Subheadline, the realm of civil power. Quote, question, who should be subject to civil government? Quote, let every soul be subject unto a higher power, for there is no power but of God. Romans 13:1. Excuse me. Okay. Question. But whom are the powers that be ordained? Quote, the powers that be are ordained of God. Verse 1. Still Romans 13:1. Okay. Question. What does one resist? What does one resist who resists civil authority? Quote, whosoever therefore resists the power resisteth the ordinance of God, and they that resisted shall receive to them damnation. Verse 2. So that's Romans 13, verse 2. It's got a note. Note, quote, that is, they who rise up against government itself, who seek anarchy and confusion, who oppose the regular execution of the law. It is implied, however, that those laws shall not be such as to violate the rights of conscience, or oppose of law of God. End quote. Albert Burns on Romans 13, verse 2. Okay. Question. What are the I gotta go robot. What are the proper spirit and work of civil authority? Quote, for rulers are not a terror to good works, but to the evil. 3 dots. If thou do that which is evil, be afraid. For he beareth not the sword in vain, for he is the minister of God, a revenger to execute wrath upon him that doeth evil. Verses 3 and 4. So that's Romans 13, 3 and 4. Question. For whom is law made? Quote, knowing this, that the law is not made for a righteous man, but for the lawless and disobedient. 1 Timothy 1:9, verse 9. Question. How are Christians admonished to respect civil authority? How are Christians admonished to respect civil authority? Quote, put them in mind to the subject of principalities and powers, to obey magistrates, to be ready to every good work. Titus 3, verse 1. Quote, submit yourself to every ordinance of man for God's sake, whether it be to king as supreme, or unto governors as unto them that are sent by him for the punishment of evildoers, and for the praise of them that do well. 3 dots. Honor all men, love the brotherhood, fear God, honor the king. End quote. 1 Peter 2, 13 through 17. Quote, for this cause pay ye tribute also, for they are God's ministers, attending continually upon this very thing. Render therefore to all their duties, tribute to whom tribute is due, custom to use custom, fear to whom fear, honor to whom honor. Romans 13, 6 and 7. Subheadline, the special spiritual realm. Question. In what words does Christ show that there is another realm outside of Caesar or civil government? Quote, render therefore unto Caesar the things which are Caesar's, and unto God the things that are God's. Matthew 22:21. Question. To whom alone did he say worship is to be rendered? Quote, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew 4, verse 10. Okay, next subheadline says civil power invades God's realm. Quote, what decree did King Nebuchadnezzar once make? Quote, that at what time they hear the sound of the cornet, flute, harp, sackbut, psalmody, the clamor, dulcimer, and all kinds of music, ye shall fall down and worship the golden image that Nebuchadnezzar the king hath set up. And whoso falleth not down and worship shall be shall the same hour be cast into the midst of the fiery furnace. Daniel 3, 6 and Daniel 3, 5 and 6. Note, this decree was in direct conflict with the second commandment of God's law, which forbids making, bowing down to, and serving images. It was religious, idolatrous, and persecuting in character. Give me a second. Sorry about that. One of my little ones wanted in, and I opened the door for her, and then she stood for a little bit, and then she went right back out. I think she was mainly looking for her siblings, and she found out nobody was in here. Okay. Okay. So we talked about the golden image of Nebuchadnezzar in Daniel 3, verse 5 and 6. Okay. Then it has another a question. It says, what answer did the three Hebrew captives give? That's forgot their Hebrew name. The only names I can remember is their Babylonian names. And most people, that's what they remember is the Babylonian names. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. Okay, let me read the question again. What answer did the three Hebrew captives give? Quote, O Nebuchadnezzar, we are not careful to answer thee in this manner. If it be so, our God whom we serve is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace, and he will deliver us. 3 dots. But if not, 3 dots, we shall not serve thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Verse 16 through 18, which is Daniel 3. Daniel 3, verses 16 through 18. Question. What did Nebuchadnezzar then do? Quote, he command the most mighty men that were in his army to bind Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and cast them into the burning fiery furnace. Verse 20. Okay. Question. After their miraculous deliverance, what did Nebuchadnezzar say? Quote, blessed be the God of Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, whom hath sent his angel, and delivered his servants that trusted in him, and have changed the king's word, and yield their bodies, that they might not serve nor worship any god except their own God. Verse 28. So we're still in Daniel 3. Note, by preserving these men in the fire, God was demonstrating before all the world through his great kingdom that religion is a realm outside the legislation sphere of civil authority, and that every individual should be left free to worship or not to worship according to the dictates of his own conscience. Okay. Question. How only could the omnivorous princes complaint of Daniel, of envious. How how only could the envious princess complain to Daniel? Quote, and we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Daniel 6:5. That this question is talking about whenever during Darius, he give a thing for King Darius to do because they really hated him. Okay. Question. What decree did they prevail upon the king to make? Quote, that whosoever shall ask a petition of any god or man for 30 days, save of thee, O king, he shall be cast into the den of lions. Verse 7. So Daniel 6, verse 7. So Daniel 6 basically is the story of Daniel being put in the lion's den under King Darius. I think that's right. Yeah. Okay. Note, unlike the decree of Nebuchadnezzar, this decree forbade the worship of the true God and was in direct conflict with the first commandment of the Decalogue, which forbids the worship at any other god. Question. How did God regard this decree? Quote, he went into his house and his windows being open in his chambers towards Jerusalem. He knelt upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. Verse 10. So Daniel 6:10. It's him going up into his room that had the windows facing Jerusalem and him kneeling and praying towards that way. Question. What was finally done with Daniel? Then the king commanded, and they brought Daniel and cast him to the lion's den. Verse 16. So we're still in Daniel 6. Excuse me. Question. What did Darius say when he came to the lion's den? Quote, O Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God whom thou servest continual, able to deliver thee from the lions. Verse 20. And what was Daniel's reply? Quote, O king, live forever. My God hath sent his angel, and he hath shut up the lion's mouth, that they would not hurt me. Forsomuch as before him innocently innocent. I'm southern thing. I always put the L in it, but innocently innocent was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Verse 21-22. Note, here again was demonstrated by a miracle wrought in the face of this great nation, that with the directing, prescribing, and pre- prescribing, proscribing, and interfering with religion or its free exercise, civil government can of right have nothing whatsoever to do. Okay, now we go new subheadline. Says God's command versus man's. Question: What parting command did Christ give his disciples? Quote, Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. Mark 16, verse 15. Question: What counter command did the Jews soon give them? Quote, They that call them and command them not to speak at all nor teach in the name of Jesus. Acts 4:18. Question: What reply did Peter and John make? Quote, Whether it be right in the sight of God to hearken unto you more than unto God. Judge ye, for we cannot but speak the things which we have seen or heard. Verse 19 and 20. So Acts 4, verse 19 and 20. This picture of the government pictures is distracted me a little. Okay. Let me get back to the book. Okay. Question: For continuing to preach, what befell the apostles? For continuing to preach, what befell the apostles? Quote, Then the high priest rose up, and all they that were with him, parentheses, which is the sect of the Sanhedrin, which is the sect of Sadducees, in parentheses, and were filled with indignation, and laid their hands upon the apostles, and put them in common prison. Acts 5:17 through 18. What did an angel of God then do? Quote, But the angel of the Lord by night opened the prison doors and brought them forth and said, Go, stand and speak in the temple to the people all the words of this life. Verse 19 and 20. Acts 5:19 and 20. Note, here once again is demonstrated the fact that men have no right to interfere with the free exercise of religion, and that when laws of men conflict with the law and the word of God, we are to obey the latter, whatever the consequences may be. Okay. Interesting. Which is really true. That's why we have a lot of martyrs in church history. For they did this. Okay, question. When the apostles were called before the council again, what question did the high priest ask them? Quote, Did we not strictly command you that ye should not teach in this name? And said, behold, ye have filled Jerusalem with your doctrine, and intended to bring this man's blood upon us. Verse 28. So Acts 5:28. Okay. Question. What reply did the apostles make? Quote, we ought to obey God rather than men. Verse 29. So we're still in Acts 5. Okay, note. Quote, the obedience to be rendered to all human governments is subordination to the will of God. These governments are a recognized necessity in the nature of the case, and their existence is manifestly in accordance with the divine will. Hence, the presumption is always in favor of the authority of civil law, and any refusal to obey must be based on the moral proof that obedience will be sin. 3 dots. It is too obvious to need discussion that the law of God, the great principle of benevolence, is supreme, and that we ought to obey God rather than men in any case of conflicts between human law and the law of divine. End quote. James H. Fairchild, Moral Philosophy, 1869 edition, page 178 through 181. Okay. Question. Who is higher than the higher power? Quote, if thou seest the oppression of the poor, and violence preventing of judgment and justice in the province, marvel not at the manner, for he that is higher than the highest regardeth, and there be higher than they. Ecclesiastes 5:8. Note, in an attempt to defend the right of civil government to enforce religious observance by law, shall still ask, quote, shall we not obey the power that be? End quote. We answer, quote, yes, when they are in harmony with the higher power that be. God made his law for all the universe. He is to be recognized. His law honored before all the great men and the highest earthly powers. End quote. Okay, well, a lot of stuff, but I'm trying to read it as best as I can. Sight read as best as I can. I'm sorry if my sight reading is not very well, but I'm doing the best that I can. And that's why I got this piece of paper to help me keep my lines straight, but I still jump around. Okay, let me get back to the book. Sorry, I had to clarify myself. Okay, question. Because Mordecai refused to bow down to Haman, what decree did Haman succeed in having the king issued. Quote, and the letters were sent by post into all the king's province to destroy, to kill, and to cause to perish all Jews among young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to make the spoil of them, the spoil of them for a prey. Esther 3, not, sorry about that. Says, this same call has been calling me for the past 2 weeks, almost a full month, and it's some kind of insurance, and I don't need anything else on my budget. And this time I tried not to be nasty. I try my best not to be nasty at all on this, but it's a very annoying call, and it's the same, around the same area, the same number. They have called me for 2 weeks. They need to stop. Not, and I don't know if it's real or a spam or what. But I digress. That I digress. I know it's probably important, but I don't know because I just got spammed on something, and my budget cannot afford anything else of what I got. Sorry, I went off. Sorry. Let me get back to the book. Okay, let me get back to this question before I was rudely interrupted by this. The question says, because Mordecai refused to bow down to Haman, what decree did Haman succeed in having the king issue? Quote, and the letters were sent by post into all the king's provinces to destroy, to kill, and to come to perish all Jews, both young and old, little children and women, in one day, even upon the 13th day of the 12th month, which is the month of Adar, and to have the spoil of them for a prey. Esther 3:13. Then it has a note, and it looks like a long one. Okay, note. God has placed the sword, parentheses, civil authority, into the hands of Caesar, parentheses, civil government, in parentheses, for the punishment of evildoers. But when the sword is raised to slay the innocent, as in the case of the children of Bethlehem, Matthew 2:16, or to enforce idolatrous worship, as in the case of the three Hebrews, Daniel 3, or to prohibit the worship of the true God, as in the case of Daniel in Daniel 6, or to slay all God's people, as in the time of Esther, or to enforce the observance of a false Sabbath, as in the case of all Sunday law. It is an abuse of civil authority and not a proper or justifiable use of it. And God honors those who, under such circumstances, in the face of persecution, oppression, and death, remain loyal and true to him. Quote, government is never the gainer in the execution of the law that is manifestly unjust. Three dots. Conscious men are not the enemy, but the friends of all government, but a tyranny. Conscientious men are not the enemy, but the friends of any government, but a tyranny. They are its strength and not its weakness. Daniel in Babylon, praying contrary to the law, was a true friend and supporter of the government, while those who, in their pretending zeal for the law and the Constitution, would strike down the good man, where its real enemies. It is only when government transcends its sphere that it comes to conflict with the consciousness of man. Three dots. It should always be remembered that the great end of government is human well-being, and that law and authority are nothing in themselves, and that all their sacredness arises from the uses which they serve. The machinery of government is valuable only for the work it does in itself. It has no value. Three dots. The most egregious of all imperfection in government is the failure to secure the just and good result. J.H. Fairchild, Moral Philosophy, page 184, 186. And yeah, end quote. God is above all earthly rulers, and his law above all human law. He made us, and we therefore owe allegiance to him before any earthly power, potentate, or tribunal. Okay, now we go to a new subheadline. It said personal responsibility to God alone. Question: what is religion? Quote: the recognition of God as the object of worship, love, and obedience. End quote. Webster. Other definitions equally good are, quote, the duty which we owe to our Creator and the manner of discharging it, end quote. Quote, man's personal religion of faith and obedience to God, end quote. Question: in religious things, what alone should we call Father? In religious things, whom alone should we call Father? Quote, and
call no man your father upon the earth, for one is your Father, which is in heaven. Matthew 23, verse 9. Question. What tempted to bow to Satan? What tempted to bow to Satan? When tempted to bow to Satan, what did Christ reply? Quote, Then said Jesus unto him, Get thee hence, Satan, for it is written, Thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew 4, verse 10. See also Deuteronomy 6:13, Deuteronomy 10:20. Question. To whom alone, then, is each one accountable in religion? Quote, so then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. Romans 14, verse 12. Note, with this agree the words of Washington in his reply to the Virginia Baptists in 1789, quote, every man conducting himself as a good citizen and being accountable to God alone for his religious opinions ought to be protected with worship the deity according to the dictates of his own consciousness. End quote. In the book's Writings of George Washington, see J.C. Fitzpatrick edition, volume 30, page 321. Then we have a subheadline. It says, Human usurpers. 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 Okay. It's a weird word. Okay. Give me a second. It's a weird word. Usurpers are the bad guys. I guess. It's just too big of a word. Okay. What do those do, therefore, who make men accountable to them in religious affairs? They put themselves in place of God. See 2 Thessalonians 2, 3, and 4. Okay. Question. Why in religious matters did Christ say men should not be called masters? Quote, Neither be ye called masters, for one is your master, even Christ. Matthew 23, verse 10. Note, everyone therefore who acts as master in Christ's church, or lords it over God's heritage, 1 Peter 5:3, puts himself in place of Christ. Question. To whom then, as servants, are we responsible in matters of faith and worship? Quote, Who art thou that judgest in another man's servant? To his own master he standeth or falleth. Romans 14:4. Question. Whose servants are not to be? Whose servants are we not to be? Quote, Ye are bought with a price. not ye the servants of men. 1 Corinthians 7:23. Note, quote, Satan's methods ever tend to one's end, to make men the slaves of men, to make men the slaves of men, end quote, and thus separate them from God, destroying faith in God, and so expose men to temptation and sin. Christ's work is to set men free, to renew faith, and to lead to willing and loyal obedience to God. Says Luther, quote, concerning God's word and internal manners, God does not permit such a submission of one man to another. Three dots. Because faith, submission, and humility is the real worship which three dots should be not be rendered to any creature. Three dots. Since to trust any creature in things pertaining to eternal life means the same as giving honor to a created being, an honor which belongs to God alone. End quote. Translated from Martin Luther, letter to Emperor Charles V, April the 28th, 1521, in his, oh great German, the Schutzven, that's Semmelweis is S-A with the double dots on top, Mmtliche, and Strofen is Schriften, and then it has brackets Walch, WALCH edition of volume 15, column 1897. And then the last part of this headline says, at the judgment seat. And that's the subheadline. Question, where must all finally appear to render their account? Where must all finally appear to render his account? Quote, for we must all appear before the judgment seat of Christ, that everyone may receive the things done in his body according to that he hath done, whether it be good or bad. 2 Corinthians 5:10. Sorry, I'm getting a cold. Okay. Note, inasmuch then as religion is an individual matter, and each individual must give account of himself to God, it follows that there should be no human constraint nor compulsion in religious affairs. Which, if you think about it, is actually really true. Okay. Okay, now we go. Sorry, we got a new subhead. We got a headline: the union of church and state. Okay. Question: what was already at work in the the church in Paul's day. Quote, the mystery of iniquity doeth already work. 2 Thessalonians 2:7. Question, what class of men did he say would rise in the church? Quote, for I know this, that after my departing shall grievous wolves enter in among you, now not sparing the flock. Also of your own selfishness shall men arise, speak, preserve previous things, to draw away the disciples after them. Acts 20, verse 29 and 30. Question, what was to develop in the church before Christ's second coming? Quote, that day shall not come, except there come a falling away first, and that men of sin be revealed, and the son of perdition. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3. Question, how was this falling away from the truth shown? By the adoption of heathen rites and customs in the church. And then it didn't have a quote, but that was the answer. Note, Tertullian, about AD 20, or see Common Error 20, mentions many admittedly non-scriptural practices as already traditional in his day, such as immersing thrice in baptism, thus, quote, making a somewhat ampler pledge than the Lord has appointed in the gospel, end quote. Offering of the dead as birthday honors, the proclamation of, quote, fasting or kneeling in worship on the Lord's Day, three dots, also from Easter to Whit Sunday, end quote, a special reverence for bread and wine, and the tracing of the sign of the cross on the forehead, quote, at every forward step and movement, at every going in and out, when we put on our clothes and shoes, when we bathe, when we sit at a table, when we light a lamp or couch on seat in all the ordinary actions of life, end quote. The Corona, that's what it says, De Corona, chapter 3-4, in the Ante-Nicene Fathers. The Ante-Nicene, ANTE-NICENE, the Ante-Nicene Fathers, Volume 3, 1918, page 900, page 94, 95. Quote, we are told in various ways by Eusebius, saying, Cardinal Newman that Constantine uh, says Cardinal Newman, quote, that Constantine, in order to recommend the new religion to the heathen, transferred into it the outward ornaments on which they had been accustomed in their own end quote, such as incense, candles, voltaic, votive offerings, holy water, images, and singular things. Newman's full list is quoted in the readings on the previous page. Full list is quoted in reading on. Wow, I'm curious. I'll go back to that. Oh, that's that long thing. That really, really long bit from the fall of modern Babylon. That's where it is. I was curious for a second, and boy, is it a long list. Okay, so now we got another subheadline. Subheadline. The union of church and state begins. Quote, what came to be the character and work of many bishops. What came to be the character and work of many bishops. Quote, worldly mind bishops, instead of caring for the salvation of their flock, were often but too much inclined to travel about and entangle themselves in worldly concern. Neither, so it says, Neander, Neander, in the book General History of the Christian Religion and Church of Torroy Translation, Volume 2, page 16. Okay? A lot of stuff. A lot of stuff to digest in this book, for real. Okay, question. What did the bishops determine to do? Quote, this theological theory was already the prevailing one at the time of Constantine, and the bishops voluntarily made themselves depending on him by their disputes and by their determination to make use of the power of the state for the furtherance of their alms. In page 132. I think this is Ibid. It says Ibid again. So it must be this general history of the Christian religion and church. And then we got a note. Looks like a pretty long note. Note, the quote, theological theory, quote, that of a government administered by God through the bishops, was confronted by the actual actual the actu- actually of the pagan system under which the emperor was had been Pontifex Maximus, or chief priest of the pagan state religion, in consequence of which Constantine, such he after his recognition of Christianity, regarded himself as a part of bishop of external the external affairs of the church, and the church as a sort of department of the government. The idea the ideal of the bishops, that's just the ideal of the bishops, that of a government guided by God through the church, was pursued with variable but increased success in Western Europe in the development of the Bishop of Rome as the Pope. See, it's got a lot of church history in it, that's for sure. Okay, question. What was one? What has been one great characteristic of the papacy? A union of church and state, or religious power, demonstrating the civil power to further its ends. And that wasn't a quote. That was just uh, looks like the next few questions have have nothing to do with the Bible, except for the last two. Okay, so the next question in this chapter says, when was the union of church and state formed from what the papacy which the papacy grew? The foundation was laid for it during the reign of Constantine, A.D. 313 337 A.D. or C.E., and it developed under his successors. Note: Constantine's granting first liberty and then preference to the recently persecuted Christian, opened the door to the elevation of Christianity, and specifically of Christian hierarchy Christianity, with its exclusiveness towards heretical and systematic sect, to be the religion of the state. For once put on the equal footing with heathenism, it must soon, in spite of numerical minority, bear away the victory from the religion which had already inwardly outlived itself. From this time Constantine decidedly favored the church, though without persecuting or forbidding the pagan religion. End quote. Philip Scaife, History of the Church of the Christian Church, Scribner's 1902 edition, Volume 3, pages 30-31. Okay. Under Constantine's successors, official paganism was abolished, and Christianity made the only legal religion of the state. Okay. Subheadline: State support. Question: How did this evolution of the church begin? Or is it evolution or evaluation? Evaluation. Yes, it's evaluation. Okay, through the patronage and religious legislation of Constantine. Note: authorities differ as to when or whether Constantine was converted to Christianity and whether he favored the church more from religious or political moves. The outline of events follows. A.D. or C.E. 306, Constantine's assertion as one of the four rules. Constantine's accession as one of four rulers of the empire with jurisdiction over the prefecture of Gaul. 312. His victory over the Maxentius, Maxentius, which made him sole ruler of the West, and which he attributed to the aid of the God of the Christians, whom he had invoked under a supposed vision of a cross in the sky. 313. The so-called Edict of Milan, issued jointly with his colleagues Lucius or Licinus, 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 granting religious liberty to all of whatever religion believed, and particularly mentioning the Christians. Hereafter, Constantine surrounded himself with bishops, gave preference to the Christians, and issued legislations in their favor, without announcing or persecuting paganism. 321. His famous Sunday law, which served to unite his Christian and pagan subjects in the observance of, quote, the venerable day of the sun, end quote. 323 or 324, his attainment of sole rule of the whole empire by the defeat of his last rival, the pagan Licinius, who had presumed persecution of the Christians in the East. His open espousal, and proclamation of Christianity about this time, and the subsequent disappearance of the sun god and other pagan symbols from his coinage. So basically, Constantine just took the sun god symbol off his coinage. Okay? 325. His convincing of the Council of Nicaea, which he dominated in order to secure unity in the church. Subsequently, his enforcement of that unity against heretical Christians in favor of the Catholic Church. 337. His long deferred baptism during his last illness. Okay. For the principal fact that Constantine, see Philip Shay's History of the Christian Church, Volume 3, pages 12 through 36. For shorter treatment, see A.C. Flick, Flick, The Rise of the Medieval Church, pages 115 through 122. A.E.R. Boak, B-O-A-K, The History of Rome to 565 A.D., pages 347 through 350. It's a lot of stuff to go research after this. Okay, question. What form did this government patronage take under Constantine at last and later rulers? Immunities, privilege, and certain justical functions of the clergy, and gifts, endowments, and financial support of the church. First, on a bias of equality with the priesthood and temples of paganism, then on a preference bias, and finally to the exclusion of all except Catholic orthodoxy. 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 Okay, question. What kind of religious legislation united church and state? Quote, laws granting privilege and patronage, and those enforce church dogma, practices, and disciplinary decrees, and suppressing paganism and heresy. And a note: Constantine's early Christian legislation could accept the Christian clergy from military and municipal duty. March 313. Abolished various customs and ordinances offensive to the Christians. 315. Felicitating the immaculate emancipation of Christian slaves before 316. Legislates bequest of Catholic churches 321. Enjoined the civil ordinance of Sunday through not as died. Okay, enjoined the civil ordinance of Sunday through not as dies demomony. I hate saying that word because uh, my mouth doesn't do it right, but D-O-M-I-N-I, demomity, brackets, the Lord's Day, in brackets, but as dies solus. Solus, in brackets, the Sunday. In brackets, 3 dots. and in company with an ordinance of the regular consulting of the Haruplex, Haruspex, bracket soothsayer, 321, and it's end quote. Philip Schaff, or Philip Scaife, yeah, that's what it is, 'cause that's what the teacher down at Scaife, Schaff, Scaife. Philip Scaife, History of the Christian Church, Subscribers, 1902, edition 3, 1902 edition, volume 3, page 31. For Sunday legislation, see the following reading. That's what it says. Okay. Now we have a news headline. And it says state supervision. Okay. Question. How did Constantine intimidate state supervision of the church? How did Constantine intimidate state supervision of the church? Having achieved political unity in the empire, he sought to gain church unity through church councils. Okay. Note, the first ecumenical, Ecumenical, I've seen that word in that old book. The first, when I was copying it. Sorry, let me go back to it. The first ecumenical or general council of Nicaea in 325 was called and presided over by Constantine. Quote, the ecumenical councils, quote, said Scaife, quote, have not only the ecclesiastical sufficiency, but bear also a political or state church charter. The very name refers to the empire, the Christian Greco-Roman emperor is indisposable to an ecumenical council in the ancient sense of the term. Its temporal head and its legislation strength, upon this Byzantine president and upon the example of the kings of Israel, the Roman czars, and the Protestant princes of Germany, Scandinavia, and England, be it just or unjustified, build their claims to a similar and still more extended supervision of the church in their dominions. Ibid, page 334, 335. Whew. I wonder if my TNA's got all these countries in it. And all the symbols, golly. Okay, never mind, let's get back to the book. Okay, question. What are the principal questions discussed at Nicaea? First, the Arian controversy. Next, the date of Easter. And it does says Arian, Arian. And whenever I see Arian, I think of all things, think of what they were doing at the time of the Holocaust. Every time I see Arian. Okay, never mind. Note, quote, it appears that the note, quote, it appears that the churches of Samaria and Mesopotamia contain to follow the custom of the Jews and celebrated Easter on the 14th day of the moon, whether falling on Sunday or not. All the churches observe that Solomon on Sunday only, viz. those of Rome, Italy, Africa, Lydia, Egypt, Spain, Gaul, and Britain, and all Greece, Asia, and Pontus. End quote. Isaac Boyle, Historical View of the Council of Nicaea, 1836, edition, page 23. But this council, Easter, was fixed on Sunday, immediately following the full moon, which was nearest after the vernal equinox. So basically the vernal equinox, that's the spring equinox. Okay, question. What does Neander says, or Neander says, of the securing of religious law? Quote, in this way the church received help from the state for the furtherance of her ends. End quote. General History of the Christian Religion and Church, Tolroyd translation, 1852 edition, volume 2, page 301. Note, in this way church and state were united. In this way the church gained control of the civil power which she later used as a means of carrying on most bitter and extensive persecution. In this way she denied Christ and the power of godliness, and demand that the civil power should be exerted to compel men to serve God as the church should dictate. Okay. Question. What did Augustine, the father of the Christian theotact, or church and state theory, teach concerning it? And the Christian theocrat, Theocratic, quote, who doubts but what it is better to be led by God by instruction than by fear of punishment or affliction? But because of the former we will be guided only by instruction. All better, the others are still not to be neglected. Three dots. Many, like bad servants, must often be reclaimed to their master by the rod of temporal sufferings, ere they obtain can attain to this high state of religious development. End quote. Ipid, pages 214 to 15. So this is sort of the general history of the Christian religion and church. I finally figured out what Ipid means. I thought it was a book, but it just means previous. Okay, and then this part ends with a poem by Robert T. Daniel. And the poem goes, Lord is humble, sweet submission. Lord, in humble, sweet submission, here we meet to follow thee, trust in thy great salvation, which alone can make us free. Not have we to claim as merit all the duties we can do, can no crown of life inherit, all the praise to thee is due. Robert T. Daniel. Oh, this is a lot of reading, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff to digest. And of course, you can always stop it, rewind, go back, read what a horrible reading I did, and uh, find out what all. Sorry, I'm getting cold, and so my nose is making weird noises. Okay, so that is the end of that headline. Now we have a new headline, and hopefully this is it's got a long note. It's only 2 pages long, but it's got a lot of information in here. And they made it all, and they shrink the notes down so they'll fit all in here. Okay, and it says Sabbath legislation. Headline: God, man, and the Sabbath. Question: Who made the Sabbath? Quote: In 6 days the Lord made the heavens and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them is, and rested the 7th day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Exodus 20:11. Question: Question: To whom does the Sabbath belong? Quote: The Sabbath day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. Verse 10. Exodus 20, verse 10. Question: To whom then should its observance be rendered? Quote: Render to Caesar that which is. Render to Caesar things that are Caesar's, and to God things that are God's. Mark 12:17. Note: When men make Sabbath law, therefore they require Sabbath observance to be rendered to the government, or presumably to God through the government, which amounts to the same thing. Question: in religious things, to whom alone are we accountable? Quote, so then every one of us shall give account of himself to God. End quote. Romans 14:12. Note, note, but we men make compulsory Sabbath laws. We make men accountable to the government of Sabbath observance. Subheadline: The nature of Sabbath laws. Quote, how does God show the holiness of the Sabbath law, of the Sabbath day? How does God show the holiness of the Sabbath day? Quote, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Exodus 20, verse 8. Quote, the seventh day is the Sabbath of rest, and holy convocation. Leviticus 23, verse 3. Since the Sabbath is holy, is to be kept holy, and is, oops, sorry. Okay. Since the Sabbath is holy, is to be kept holy, and this day for holy conventions, it must be religious. So that's interesting. Okay. Question: when then might the nature of all Sabbaths legislate? It is a religious legislation. So it's a religious legislation to always keep the Sabbath, which will be at the sundown today of our time. But it's already happening right now in Israel. I guess I should get the Israel clock, but it since we're here in the United States, it's a little different for us. Okay, subheadline: when the state enacts religious laws. Okay, quote: what has generally been the result of religious legislation or the union of church and state? Religious intolerance and persecution. That's the, which is really true. Or am I even recording? Yeah, I'm recording. It just looks weird. Okay. Question: what was the first Sunday law? What was the first Sunday's law? Constantine's Sunday's law of March the 7th, 321. And then it starts a note. Note, quote, on the versable day of the Lord, on the versable day of the sun, let the magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agriculture may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not suitable for grain sowing or for vine planting, lest by negligence the proper moment of such operation the bounty of heaven should be lost. And then it's got not brackets, parentheses, given on the seventh day of March, Crispus and Constantine, being consults of each of them for the second time, uh, in parentheses, end quote, Codex Justinum, Justinasm, Justinus, uh, Codex, spelled Codex, Justinanianus, Library 3, uh, Title 12 and 3, transcribed by Philip Scaife, History of the Christian Church, Volume 3, 1902, page 380, note. Then we have question. What church council required Sunday observance and forbade Sabbath observance? The Council of Laodicea decreed that Christians should keep the Sunday, and that if they persist on resting on the Sabbath, quote, they shall be shut out of Christ, end quote. See Helfe, Hefele, Hefelle, a history of the Councils of Church, Volume 2, page 316. And now we get into a very, very long. This question has a long, long answer. Okay, question. What were further imperial Sundays legislation? Quote, Constantine's decrees marked the beginning of long, though intermittent series of imperial decrees in support of Sunday's rest. Ibid, page 29. Okay, now we start with a note. Note, quote, by the law of the year 386, brackets, in the reign of Theodosius the First, that's what it says, Theodosius, Theodosius the First, in brackets, those older charges afflicted by the Emperor Constantine were more vigorously enforced, and in general, civil transactions of every kind on Sunday were strictly forbidden. Three dots. In the year 425, a bracket, in the reign of Theodosius the Younger, in bracket, the exhibition of spectacles on Sunday and on the principal feast days of the Christians were forbidden, in order that the devotion of the faithful might be free from all disturbance. Three dots. In this way, the church received help from the state for the furtherance of her ends. Three dots. But had it not been for the confusion of spiritual and secular interests, had it not been for the vast numbers of mere outward conversions thus brought about, she would have needed no such help. End quote. Nader, in his General History of the Christian Religion and Church, Volume 2, 1852, edition, page 300 and 301. The decrees of later emperors between 364 and 467 added other proclamations and exemptions from time to time. Justin, just, Justin, uh, Justin with the IAN, Justin's code collected the law of the empire on the subject, and from the time when Charlemagne, I had to look for a minute what that the word is because it's a funny word, and I should know that word because I'm supposed to be, it's supposed to be one of my ancestors. And from the time when Charlemagne, king of the Franks, were crowned emperor 800, this code was in affected all over what later became the quote Holy Roman Empire, end quote. The medieval decrees and canons of popes and councils concerning Sunday ob- observance was conformed by the civil power. And then it's got bracketed the New Shade Hozark Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, Volume 11, page 147, in in parentheses. Okay, and I still got a lot of reading. Okay, later the church counselors had an influence on some extent throughout the former Roman Empire, for the church maintained a large degree of unity. The Council of Laodicea, 4th century, ordered men to work on Sabbath and rest, if possible, on Sunday. Quote, the Council of Orleans, 538, while protesting against excessive Sabbatarianism, forbade all field work under pain of censure, and the Council of Moken, 535, laid down that the Lord's Day is the day of perpetual rest, which is suggested to us by the time of the seventh day in the law of the prophets, and ordered a complete cessation of all kinds of business. However, how far the movement had gone by the end of the 6th century is shown in a letter to Gregory the Great, Pope 590 through 604, protesting against prohibition of baths on Sunday. End quote. Hastings, Encyclopedia of Religion and Ethics, Volume 12, page 105, 106, article, quote, Decrees of the Church Councils, end quote. Law of Charlemagne, 789, quote, and we decree according to what the Lord command also in the law, that civil work shall not be done on the Lord's day, and just as my father of blessed memory commanded in his synodical edicts, that is, that men shall not carry on ritual work, neither in cultivating the vine, nor in plowing the fields, etc. Three dots. Likewise, the woman shall not do weavings, etc. Three dots. In order that in every way to honor the rest of the Lord's day may be kept. But let them come together from everywhere to the church to the celebration of the Mass and praise God in all the good things which He hath done for us on that day. End quote. Translated from Charlemagne's uh, it's Greek and Roman mixed. Ad Dominico Generalis. Uh, so Abimito is Admonitio, and Generalis is general with an IS at the end. Okay, uh, in momenta, Monumenta, Germania, Germaniae, Historica, Legis, Leges, Section 2 of Tom period 1, page 600, page 61, paragraph 81. Oh, it's a lot of really, yeah, looks Latin and then it looks Greek on top. I mean German. Oh yeah, tidbit. This old book's got, and I think it's the old book that said it, or was it a Bible thing I read that German means cousin. Weird. Okay, let me get back to the book. Sorry. Okay. In England, according to Lord Mansfield, Swan versus Brown, 3 Barrel, 1599, in parentheses, William the Conqueror and Henry II declared the codes of Justinian on Sunday observance to be law in England. A succession of parliamentary acts regulated Sunday observance in England. Then you've got C. New Shafe Herzog, Herzoz, Encyclopedia of Religious Knowledge, Volume 11, page 147 and 148. The first Sunday law promulgated in America, Virginia, 1610. Yeah, because Jamestown was founded in 1607. So the first law proclamating in America for Sunday was 1610. So 3 years after the Virginia Company came. Give me a second. Okay. Quote, and this is a quote from it. Quote, every man and woman shall repair in Repair in this morning to the divine service and sermon preaching upon the Sabbath day, and in the afternoon to divine service and cat, catechizing, catechizing, upon upon pain for the first fault to lose their provision and the allowance of the whole week following. For the second to lose the said allowance is also be whipped, and for the third to suffer death. From the colony of Virginia Britannica, Larvis, or Lavves, Morale, and Bertal, and etc., and Peter Force, tracks tactics relating to the colonies in America. Washington, 1844, Volume 3, Number 2, page 10. I'm going to step away from that for a minute. So, in the Americas, that you had to go listen on Sunday, and you lose whatever you have for the next week. They pretty much just, you don't do anything for you don't get anything for the next week, and then on the third you have to, you will suffer death. Ooh, and then you gotta think, all my ancestors were farmers. It just puts a kink in my brain. Well, I already got kinks in it, but it just, gives me a little, ugh. But I had preachers in my family, what I could research. They have had preachers, so each family, of course, they did what the Bible says. Each father was the minister of the house. Okay, let me get back to the book. Okay, the law of Charles II, 29th year, 1676 through 77, quote, be it enacted, three dots, that all and every person and persons whatsoever shall on every Lord's day apply themselves to the observance of the same, by exercising themselves therein in the duties of piety and true religion, publicly and privately, and that no, three dots, person whatsoever shall do or exercise any worldly labor, business, or work of their extraordinary callings upon the Lord's day, or any part thereof, brackets, works necessarily and charity only expected, in brackets, three dots, and that no person or persons whatsoever shall publicly cry, show forth, or exposed to sale any works or merchandise, except, end quote, etc. British Statutes at Large, 29th year of Charles II, chapter 7. modeled somewhat after the Puritan law of 1644 to 1658, but much shorter and milder, than further forbidding travel, but does not mention sports or pastimes, and makes the same exception for food and milk. Okay, so that's why we have Sunday football. Is this right here? Okay, I mean, I'm just trying to put it into what I'm thinking. Okay, uh, back to the book. The importance of this act is that it stood, with modification, as the basic Sunday law of England for nearly 200 years. See the Encyclopedia Britannica, 1945 edition, volume 21, page 565, and was followed as the model for many of the subsequent Sunday laws in various American colonies, and thus somewhat set the pattern for our state laws. Okay. And then we have a little poem here. It says, quote, "Wicked spirit, gather round thee legions of those foes to God. Part Principalities not mighty walk unseen the earth abroad. They were they are gathering to the battle, strengthened for the last deep strife. Christian arm, be watchful ready, struggle manfully for life." And I'm not going to start this next subheadline because I'm going to stop right here. Okay, so I'm going to stop right here for this part. So apparently, some of the stuff that we do on Sundays here in the South, uh, like the footballs, like everybody watching football on Sundays, uh, it was so 200 years ago. It wasn't supposed to. We weren't supposed to do that. Oh, but make Sunday Sunday. So, and I always thought that resting on Saturday and Sunday was what we're supposed to do, which is the truth. Because on one point of view, Saturday is supposed to be a day of rest, and then Sunday being the resurrection day would be a day of rest too. So that's what thinking and all. That's why I try to keep my studio open. I try on Saturday and Sunday not to keep my studio open, which go in there and just sit, paint, and do something, which I do as best as I can. Anyway, go ahead and stop reading for a bit and get this posted and all. You can visit me. I've got a sale going on. My eBay store is 30% off of the current 134 paintings that I have on there. You can always go on there and purchase them, and I'll mail it to you. That will help me out a bit. Uh, I have monetized these episodes on uh, Spotify platform and on uh, YouTube because I don't have that many people that listens to me, and I got a bunch of videos, but you know, I don't have very many people. Anyway, keep us in prayers. Uh, yeah, keep us in prayers. Um, right now, it's I'm gonna go ahead and say it. I don't care. It should not be known. I am having financial problems, but that's typical door. Uh, being a poor American. But anyway, uh, because God will provide. He will provide for this poor widow what is needed at the time. You know, He allotted. But anyway, keep us in prayers and do what you need, whatever you can do. I will be happy with just the prayers. And let me know that you're here. Just say hi in the comments below. Just say hi and everything. And I'm going to finish reading this book. Uh, looks like I'm almost through with it. I still got I don't know how many episodes I got left in this book, but I got a few more episodes left in this book. And then I'm thinking about going into the encyclopedia of uh, encyclopedia com, compendium of useful knowledge that I got. I've actually got three of the books. I got one book that was from Mississippi, and it's really really old and it's falling apart and don't have a title page on it anymore. Then I got another book that's falling apart that I got off of eBay, and it's got Georgia law in it, and I was trying to combine them, and it does have a title page. And then the third book uh, is from out west, and it's drier looking than these other two because of the dry climate it was in, and it's written, and I think it was a preacher's. I personally I think it was a preacher's book uh, out in the dry country out west, because it does have this. They do write in some of this in these books, these older books. They do have uh, written in pencil, which they told me not to do in college, and I did it anyway. But I used the ebony pencil um, instead of worked in pen uh, because I was an artist and I always carried around with an ebony pencil with me. Anyway, keep me and my daughter in your prayers when you do speak. Just just say uh, if you remember. Uh, anyway, I'm gonna try to upload this and finish this. You can always go to my eBay store or go to my blog, and I have or my Redbubble, Zazzle, and Pixel websites to buy any of my nice, beautiful artwork, which is a little different than most people. And of course, I am Loretta Nash, and you're listening to the Loretta Nash Show on Spreaker and Lord's blog on Spotify or either one. And always download it, thumbs up, um, do whatever you need to do to help out if you can. I don't want to, you know, be needy and seem needy. I just want to say what I want to read this book. You know, I guess keep it in the spirit.
in the atmosphere. What's really cool is a long time ago, I watched a movie, and the little character in the movie that she had my name. The antagonist in the internet sphere had my name, which is weird because not many people have my name. Because it's a just a strange name, Loretta. I'm kind of like named after. Well, I'm named after Loretta Lynn, who Loretta Lynn was named after Loretta Young. So that's how I got my name. Anyway, don't forget to thumb up and let me know that you're here by and all this stuff. And I'll see you in the next episode. Later.